Hello, guys. Welcome to my next episode of Reading the National Mail. I hope everything is fine. Everyone is good. Today, we're gonna pick up from where we have left off. We're gonna read the buffers. Rejection is better than regret. But before we start, say, I guess, give my condolences for all my Turkish friends who have watched the games last night. We have lost. Turkish team has lost against the Netherlands, which I don't understand this one thing. In Turkish, we call it Hollanda, but in English, we call it Netherlands. Doesn't make sense. If it's Netherlands, why we don't say Netherlands in Turkish? But yeah, in many other languages, Holland, but we say Netherlands. It doesn't make sense. But anyway, they beat us. They won. So, but at least we managed to came until the quarterfinals, right? That is definitely a success. Okay, so let's start reading. Rejection is better than regret. The reason why a lot of nice guys are having a hard time finding girlfriends and relationships, and they are alone most of their lives, is because they are afraid of rejection. And when you question them, when you talk with these people, they tell you they made moves on like uh, one or two or three girls in a year, perhaps, and this is all their action. This is all they do. They don't even they don't even actively try meeting with people, meeting with women, but they are absent from it. They do everything in their power to be socially away from women, and and this is also one of the reasons why men are more prone to have one-itis syndromes, and why they are in friend zone, because they're so afraid of rejection, and they make moves on women in very less women. It's like they find a woman, and they start moving around her as an orbit, and then they wait for the right time, for the right moment, for months. And even if they would have a shot in the beginning, they would lose it. They lose it because they wait just too much. They wait for all the situations to be perfect, and there is no perfect situation, so they lose. And some guy comes along who is less afraid of rejection and who is more courageous, and he made his moves, and he manages to get the girl. So this is their situation. That's why we need to analyze this situation very carefully. Let's start reading. Why rejection is better than regret. While sifting through some of my past posts on the Sosua forum, it hit me. Over 90% of what I advocate there can be reduced to overcoming a fear of rejection. 90% of the dilemmas AFCs find themselves in, AFC means average frustrated chumps. 90% of the dilemmas AFCs find themselves in, and a majority of men's concerns with the opposite sex find their roots in the methods and means they use to reduce their exposure to female rejection. These are buffers meant to reduce the potential for this rejection of intimacy. Men, of course, aren't the only ones who use buffers. Women have their share as well. But I think it would be much more productive for guys to recognize this propensity in themselves and see the methods they use and go often ego invest in their personal psychologies to buffer themselves against rejection. Virtually every common problem guys deal with finds its basis in these buffers. And these buffers are things that guys use in order to reduce rejection. But while they're doing it, they are sabotaging their own chances of success. because the more you face rejection, the more you reject, the more you're being rejected by women, more the more your chances are to find a woman. But men use these buffers to reduce the chances of rejection. Hence, they get rejected less. They actually have success in what they're looking for. But it's what they're looking for is not actually what they're looking for. So that's why they are eventually becoming unsuccessful. One of these buffers are LDRs, means long distance relationships. A guy will entertain an LDR because it was based on a previous acceptance of intimacy, and being no longer convenient due to distance, the guy will cling to the relationship because it is a buffer against potential rejection from new women instead of accepting the relationship as being finished and maturely re entering the dating pool. It is a perceived sure thing, even if only rarely rewarding. Imagine, as a guy, when you are in a long distance relationship, you cannot entertain yourself with most of the pleasures of being in a relationship because it's long distance. You get to see her less often. Probably there's no sex, and you only text, and you only talk in the phone, and that's almost all of your relationship. But guys will do that in order to escape from rejection, because when they are in the market, dating market, it's harder for them to try their chances with a woman in their side, because they have to actively go and seek them and make moves on them. This is harder, but making moves, texting someone on the phone is easier, and the chances of rejection is lesser. And even if there is a chance of rejection, it's less painful. It's less painful for someone to reject you on the phone or in messages than on face to face. And this is why people choose, a lot of guys, this is what in their subconscious mind, the fear of rejection leads them to be in these kind of relationships. But it's actually, by doing that, they are they are, what this is called, I forgot this word. Taviz vermek. Taviz. They are compromising. They are compromising their own success. Playing friends is another buffer. Usually, after an LGBF rejection, after a let's just be friends rejection, where the perception is the potential love interest might later become an intimate with time and qualification. No matter how misguided, the time and effort spent by the guy improving himself as the would be perfect boyfriend is a buffer against further rejection by new potential females, which is then further compounded by a moralistic sense of duty to be an actual friend to his let's just be friends girl. In essence, his buffer against further rejection is his misplaced dedication to the let's just be friends girl. Another variation of this is the cap and save a hoe dynamic, which is another dynamic will be discussed. But eventually, playing friends is a guy hiding his true emotions and intentions under the guise of being a friendship. Because when you do this, when you go to a woman, uh, completely being open with your true intentions, the chances of your rejection is higher. But when you go under the guise of a friendship, the chances of rejection is lesser. So a lot of guys will do that in order to reduce the chances of rejection. But then, while simultaneously reducing their chances of rejection, now their chances of having an actual intimate relationship is going way lesser, because they have reduced the risks, and since they have reduced the risks, they have reduced the reward as well. Now the woman, like their mind is, if I be friends with this woman, and if I would be there for her, and if I would prove myself over time that I will have everything that she would need in a boyfriend, then she will eventually see me as more than a friend. This is what they think. But when you present yourself to a woman as a friend, this is what you will be for the rest of your relationship, a friend, because she will perceive you as such, because you showed yourself to her as a friend, and that's what you will be forever. And that's why buffering your chances of rejection under the guise of friendship will never work. Another buffers are emails, IMs, and texts. I can already see where Rollo Tomassi is going with this, because a lot of guys, instead of actually approaching a woman in real life and making moves on a woman, and like going on dates and trying to be flirtatious with a woman in real life, what they do is they send emails, they send text messages in DMs, in Instagrams, and in real life they're all friends. They're all like acting like friends, or they're not showing their true intentions and their true feelings on the real life, but they're, instead of that, they're doing it on messages. They're hiding behind their text messages, and this is very unattractive, because you look like a coward. And women would prefer to be with a guy who has enough courage to face the fear of rejection and making the moves, actually want to meet with the girl by facing the fear of rejection. That guy is attractive. And even if that guy is rejected, he is also respected, because he did what was necessary. But anyway, let's just read what Rollo Tomassi says about this. Emails, IMs, and texts. I should also lengthy phone conversations to this list as well, but really, and technology that seemingly increases communication serves as a buffer for both genders. The more it limits interpersonal communication, the rationalization is that it keeps him in constant contact with his sex interest, which in and of itself is a mistake, but only serves as a buffer against her rejection. The latent or latent, the latent perception being that it's easier to read a rejection or hear one than to potentially be rejected in person, as exactly as I said. A lot of guys will encounter this with how texts and IMs are just how this generation plays its game. The difference, I'd argue, is that when digital communication becomes your preferred method of interacting with women, it's a buffer. So you should always prefer meeting with women face to face. That's why you should have a social life, social interactions, and you should constantly meet with new women, but not only to make moves on them, but just to increase your social cycle. This will make you more attractive. Continue. Facebook and online dating. This one should be fairly obvious for the same reasons as above. Online dating is perhaps the best buffer ever conceived, particularly for less than physical ideal women. In fact, it's so effective that business can be built upon the common insecurities and fear of rejection of both sexes. Objectification of gender. And this might be less obvious, but both sexes objectify one another. Naturally, when we think of this, the popularized notion is that men objectify women as sex objects, but women have a tendency to objectify men as success objects for the same reason. It is easier to accept rejection from an object than it is to take it from a living, breathing human being. This is why we refer to intergender communication as a game. We score or we get shot down, not personally or emotionally rejected, The buffer is in the language and mental approach. So this is also another interesting thing that we need to understand. Both sexes objectify each other. I think what objectifying is, we truly want something from the opposite sex. And to me, the objectification is, you focus so much on what you want from the other sex. What you want is the objectification of the sex that you are having a relationship with. So instead of truly understanding who that person you are seeing is, you completely focused on the things that you truly desire, and then you can't really actually have a relationship with the person because you are truly focused on too much what you really want. On guys, this is wanting sex. When you are focusing too much on desire, your sexual desires, you can't truly focus on the woman that you are having a relationship with, because you are objectifying her. She's merely an object of what you truly want, which is sex and being desired. And for women, this can be attention. For example, as a woman, you want so much attention. The guy that you are seeing is becoming an object of the attention that you truly want. So you don't really want to be with the guy that you are seeing, but you like his attention a lot. So you are objectifying the guy as the attention object. This can be pretty much anything. This can be attention, this can be a desire of having a family, children. This can be being with a man who has a lot of success, money, anything. The the what you're objectifying can change with your personality, but usually both men and women are objectifying each other. And in order to have a true relationship, you must you must have a balance between what you really want and who you really want to be with, right? Continue. Idealization of gender. This is the myth of the quality woman. The buffer operates in perceived self limitations based on a search for an ideal mate. Thus, a tendency to fixate on one woman means one itis, or one type of woman means a gender archetype develops. By limiting to and or fixating on one woman or type, the potential for rejection decreases, while ensuring that any real rejection will come only from what will later be deemed non-qualified women. Rejection equals low quality woman and is thus disqualified. So you see how smart we can be sometimes for our not for our benefit. We rationalize these things, and by doing this, we are doing a bad deed for ourselves. So what we do is, any person, any woman that would have a potential to reject us, now they are low quality women. But the woman that would have lesser potential to reject us, then they are the most quality women. This is what we do. This is how we rationalize our fear of rejection. And we must be very careful of this. This works in a similar fashion to the objectification buffer, in that the woman delivering the rejection is reduced to an object. Another buffer is scarcity mentality. The take what I can get and be glad I got it mentality acts as a buffer, in that it works opposite of the idealization buffer. And deprivation is motivation. And by sticking with this sure thing as the only thing, the potential for new rejection is then eliminated. Older women, younger women. I should also include certain body types in this category as well. But the buffer is in certain types of women being less likely to reject a man due to their personal circumstances. The cougar dynamic debate has been done into irrelevancy now. But the buffer is that older women acting in accordance with their conditions will be more inclined to accept the advances of younger women. I have this guy texted me the other day. He is, I think, 23, 24, and he is seeing a woman 36. And the woman wants to marry her, and apparently she is incredibly rich. And the guy doesn't really have a problem with having relationships with the woman, apparently, as he told me. But he tells me that this woman behaves her incredibly. She's always there, and she's behaving like the best woman in the world. And this could be also a potential love bombing. Thus, you need to be carefully. But you need to understand, when you're seeing an older woman, because of their conditions, they are more prone to behave good to you. But this doesn't necessarily mean that she actually desires you, and she actually likes your personality, likes you how you are as a man. But it can be because she has a very little time, and she needs to be very fast to lock down a guy. This doesn't necessarily mean it will happen all the time, but it can happen. So you need to be very careful. In the same vein, very young girls will be more apt to accept the advances of older men due to navigate, and fat women are easy to become intimate with due to sexual deprivation. In and of themselves, these preferences aren't buffers per se, but an internalized preference for particular women developed by associating that particular type of woman with the minimization for potential rejection. Leagues is another rejection. And this is the opposite of a high standards buffer, which could be grouped with scarcity. There is the woman some guys actually fear because she is perceived to be so much more socially valuable than the average guy estimates himself. Think of a hot status key corporate director who runs marathons, travels a lot, has good friends, dresses well, etc., etc., etc. The average frustrated chump tells himself, "Wow, is she out of my league? I would just get shut down because I would need to possess A, B, and C to be her I to be her social status slash physical status equal for her to even be interested." Ergo, the internalized idea of leagues is a useful rationalization buffer against rejection. So when you see a woman you perceive as a higher league than you don't actually know that she's going to reject you. And there is a chance that she would actually accept to be with you, and she would be interested, but you don't know. In order for you to really know, it's to have a courage and make moves on her. But this idea of leagues serves as a buffer, and you hold yourself down because you're prone to think that she has a higher league than you, so you don't even make moves at all. Pornography. I realize this will draw some fire from the masturbation slash no masturbation set, but porn, as men use it, is a buffer against rejection. Porn doesn't talk back. Porn doesn't need a few drinks to loosen up, nor does porn require any social skills to produce rewards. It's convenient, immediate sexual release that requires nothing more than a PC and an internet connection, or a magazine if you prefer the analog means. We can argue the obsessive compulsive aspect of it, or the my girlfriend and I enjoy porn together reasoning, but that's a psycho, by the way. Who watches porn with his girlfriend? Ugh. Uh, but for the single guy, the root reasoning is it's again, I'm still in the watching porn with your girlfriend thing. It's like if you have a healthy sex life, it's disgusting. Anyway, But for the single guy, the root reasoning is its facility as a buffer. I should also add that it's this very facility that makes women hated when they do. Porn gives a guy his reward for free. A reward that should be her single best agency is rendered valueless when a man can get off to an infinite variety of sexual experience at the click of a mouse. It's unlimited access to unlimited sexual availability without the stress of learning methods to earn it from women as a reward. This is how porn manages to become very popular amongst guys because it's easily accessible. But it doesn't mean it's good. It's actually very bad for you. But you can understand how porn addiction is one of the most severe addiction that exists in today's society. Because when you think of it, the sexual access of uh, today's men was equal to a medieval king's sexual access. Like in the historical areas, most men were lucky if they would find one woman, and usually it was like kings and very high social status men would have other women. Now you can open a porn website and you can see white woman, black woman, red woman, any kind of woman. So it's like even medieval kings didn't have this amount of variety of sexuality now today that average man has in terms of visualization, of course. So this has a very bad effect on male psychology, and that's why you need to be very careful, and you should stay away from this. These are really just a few notable examples, but once you become aware of how buffers manifest, you'll begin to see how and why they are useful against rejection. Buffers are generally the paths of least rejection that become our ego invested preferences. Buffers aren't so much about those preferences as they are about rejection aversion motivations behind them. At this point, you might be thinking, well, what the hell? I don't want to feel rejection. Why not employ buffers against it? The main reason for embracing rejection is that rejection is better than regret. Scan back through this short list of buffers. How many of these have become greater long term problems for you than a briefly painful rejection would have been? Buffers also have a tendency to compound upon themselves in that one tends to dovetail into another or more until you no longer realize that they were originally rejection prevention methodologies and gradually become associated with your genuine personality. After a long enough period, buffer become just how I am. That's why when beta guys meet with the red pill, they say, "This is just how I am. You want me to behave as a guy that is not how I am. I can't behave this way because this is not who I am." Well, how you are is unattractive, and that's why, in order to become an attractive guy, you should shape your personality in a way that is more attractive. Personality is something that can be changed. You can choose what kind of a person you would be, and you would start behaving in that way, and in time, you will be that person. Yes, faking until making. Lastly, experience teaches harsh, but it teaches best. Rejection, real, raw, in your face rejection stings like a bitch. It must be something so intolerable that human beings will devise countless social and psychological constructs in order to avoid it. However, there is no better teacher than getting burned by the stove. As a man, you are going to face rejection in far more facets of your life than just dealing with a woman. The buffers you learn in one aspect of your life will be just as encumbering when they are transferred to another aspect of your life. All of these buffers listed and many more become indicators of how you confidently deal with adversity. Some make you look like a beta male pussy. Others are subtle and nagging parts of an internalized personality. But dependence upon them incrementally reveals your real character to a woman. Are you alpha enough to take a rejection on the chin, smile, and confidently come back for more? Or will you run? Will you block yourself? Will you hide with convenient buffers? So this is why when we advise guys, when a woman rejects you, just look at her in the face, have a smile, and say thank you, goodbye, and just go back. Have a spine enough to go truly for what you really want, and have enough courage to ask and go for what you really want, and have enough spine to go back and seek what you truly want from other people when you are rejected. And when you truly do this, the woman feels like you are a value that should be seeked, because when you look at a regular woman's life, a lot of guys are there begging themselves to death so she would show a small little part of intimacy that they would perceive as a hope, but it actually isn't. But women are there are a lot of guys like this in women's life. So when you show courage to go after what you really want, and when you perceive a rejection, you understand, you accept, and you go away. The ability of going away when you realize that you are not needed, you are not wanted, and you are not desired is one of the fundamental abilities that will make you an attractive guy. And when you do this, the woman will actually think that she would like to be with you. I've seen countless examples. A guy is making moves. Woman isn't sure about if she really wants him or not. But when the breaking point happens and the guy says, "Okay, thank you, goodbye," now she's immediately like, "Oh my God, what did he do? This wasn't what I expected." Uh, yeah. He's really going. He's really going away. Now, what am I gonna do? I need to do something. Now she's really wanting to be with him. You need to show this ability, and you will solve almost 90% of your relationship problems. Compensation. One of the higher orders of physical standards women hold for men is height. There are countless threads in the manosphere community that address this, but I think that for the better part, it's not difficult to observe this in the real world. I should also add that this is one characteristic that is central to the social matching theory, in that humans are sensitive to asymmetrics and imbalances. Now, before I get told in so many ways that this isn't always the case, or that not all girls are like that, exceptions to the rule, let me start by saying that this isn't the point of this section. I don't want to debate the logistics of why women prefer a taller mate, or the tendency for like to attract like in this respect. What I'm on about is really the root of the infamous short man's disease. That's right. You know who I'm talking about. The ultimate in compensation for inferiority, the dreaded short man's disease. But if you think this is only limited to short men, you're making a mistake. You see, in so many ways, we all compensate for deficiencies. I once read a thread on another non-community forum that saw fit to start a topic asking why men lie, and it got me thinking. It got me to thinking why any of us lie, men or women. At the time, I'd also been fielding a lot of questions regarding issues we kind of take for granted after having discussed them to death in the manosphere, one of those being the nature of personality and one's ability to change their own or have it changed by circumstance, or often both. I think it's a tragic miscalculation on our part to think of personality as static, unchangeable, or to question the ingenuousness of that change. But more tragic is the doubting of ourselves for that change. As I told you, this is a real problem when guys come to the red pill, because we tell them you need to behave in a certain way, you need to do things in a certain way, and you need to think in a certain way. And they feel like they question the ingenuousness of all this. They think, is this really who I am? And you will feel like, no, it isn't. But that's precisely why we tell you to think and behave in this way. And as more you internalize this, the more your personality will change. One simple truism that a lot of people love to use as their convenient escape clause is the GBY, just be yourself notion. I really don't like why Americans do this. Like, just say the word. Why you always need to make synonyms of things? I don't like this. Just say, just be yourself. This of course is just what ones say as advice when they really don't know what else to say. Given that though, what is it that makes a personality shift genuine? Any number of us probably know an individual who began acting differently at some point in their life. This can be the result of some kind of tragedy or trauma, or it can be that the individual felt a need to change their fundamental way of thinking and made the change of their own accord. Usually, in these cases, we think of them as posers or tryhards trying to be something they're not. They reflect this change in their appearance, their regular practices, their friends or the people they associate with, attitudes, behaviors, etc. And this is what's jarring for people who knew their prior personality. What makes us doubt the sincerity of a personal change is what's at issue. If their change is something we agree with or generally think of as positive, we are less inclined to doubt the ingenuousness of this change. But when their change conflicts with our own interests, when it dramatically clashes with what we have come to expect of that individual, this is where we doubt their sincerity. We say, dude, stop trying to be something you're not. We tear it down. We fall back, just be yourself platitudes because it clashes with our interpretations. And in this doubt, we fish for reasons as to why a person would want that change. Essentially, what are they compensating for? It may be funny to presume someone driving a monster truck down the highway is making up for a small penis, but the root of that compensating is what makes us feel comfortable in our own internal compensating. A lot of the complainings guys come to us when they're in the process of internalizing the red pill is they say, I am starting to lose my friendship cycle. I myself have experienced this when I started having the red pill, when I started seeing the fundamental problems of my personality, when I started doing the necessary work to change myself. All the guys around me, especially guys, but girls too, started seeing me as disingenuous, and they stopped being friends with me. And when guys are experiencing this, they think something is wrong, and some of them may stop changing themselves and continue to be who they were. But this shouldn't stop you from doing the necessary work, because this is detrimental for your change, because your cycle reflects who you are. When you are changing yourself, your cycle changes too, because your old friends are a representation of your old way of thinking. When you go into a new way of thinking, Your friends change because your thoughts change, because now your new thoughts aren't applicable with your old friend cycle. And this is also true with, when you think about this in a perspective of Christianity. I guess there's a worse, not I guess, there is a worse. Jesus says, I come to bring swords between friends, family, father, mother, sister. When you embrace, because when you look at the symbology, swords represents thoughts and opinions. Because I studied tarot, and swords are a very fundamental symbol in tarot symbology. Swords, they represent thoughts and opinions and philosophies and teachings. So when you accept them and internalize them, now there are swords between you and your loved ones, because you don't share the same values. Now you literally feel like enemies. This happens when you accept a new faith. When you are being a Christian in a Muslim country, for example, all of your friends are Muslims. Now you are not starting to be good friends with them. Or it can also be when you become a Muslim in a Christian nation, or when you are a leftist among right-wing friends. Anything. It could be about anything. But you need to be aware of this, and you need to accept the change, and you need to go with the flow. It is a difficult enough task for an individual to critically assess their own personality, and even more so to affect the change in it. But the final insult is to have others doubt the veracity of it. What others fail to see is that at some point in the development of their own personalities, they themselves had to compensate for deficiencies, discontentments, and prompts to grow and mature. This is a gigantic hurdle for most average men wanting to transition to being something more. I like the term positive masculinity, but the crux of all that is the ingenuineness of the actual change. Why are you changing? Asks Rollo Tomassi here. Why are you changing? This is the main question. To change or not to change? That is the question. There is a saying that average frustrated chumps are like a bunch of crabs in a barrel. As soon as one is about to climb out there, are as soon as one is about to climb out there, there are always half a dozen ready to pull him back in again. This is exactly what happens when you start taking the red pill. And this is exactly why you should cut some people down, because they will fight tooth and nail to make you stop from transitioning. And you can't transition and be friends with them in the same time. Add to this a self-doubt from societal conditionings that tell him to stay the same, not to aspire to more. He's doing it right, and it's amazing that any AFC processes beyond what he was. This has been termed the societal cock block. They tell him he is compensating, and in a way, they're right, but for the wrong reason. PUA skills, psychology, positive masculinity are all compensations for deficiencies. They go beyond behavior modification. That's the easy answer. PUAs teach a set of behaviors and scripts to be aped in order to mask a deficit. These are easy pickings for the just be yourself apologists, because they are actions that generally don't match a person's prior personality. These are wait. My screen has gone. Yes. Um they are not really like that. They are not really like that. So they are posers, or worse, they have been duped by guys hawking the PUA brand or self-help tools. What they don't see is the genuine desire to change and the reasons for it. When we compensate, we improvise. We fake it till we make it, but who determines when we've stopped faking it? You do. I read all kinds of articles doubting the realized capacity a person has to adopt natural game into their personality. It's an internalization process, for sure, but there has to come a point of transition where a man's default response is his game response. That's who he is now. So, this is exactly where you need to come in your red pill journey. Now you're learning game. You read about game. You read about female nature. You listen about all these things. But there needs to be a point where you actually realize now you have internalized all of this and this is who you are now. You don't need to read or listen about how to become an alpha guy now because you are that guy. So that's why there needs to be a point where you need to start using what you have learned in here in your real life. Just being here and listening to what I have to say or what others will say is not going to change your life. You need to use them. For example, we teach you about female nature, we teach you about hypergamy. And you have some theoretic information about what all these things are. But you need to go and have a social life and you need to experiment on women yourself. You need to see those behaviors where you can categorize them as hypergamous. So you will understand, this is what it means. I know it now. I can see it in my daily life. And this is true with everything about everything that you will learn about relationships. Okay, I think my food is ready now and I am very hungry. So this is, it's enough for today. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you for being with me till oh God, I can't even speak. I'm so hungry. Okay, guys, thank you so much. If you don't, please subscribe to my channel, like this video, comment on what you think under the comment section, and see you on the other episode. Ciao.